All right, today we have Christina Marchetti. She is a licensed massage therapist, Jiu Jitsu competitor. She's just had her first boxing match and may be looking to take an MMA fight soon. So the masseuse is loose on this episode. Not a masseuse though, licensed massage therapist.
I'm so glad you love my car though, because I don't appreciate it enough.
Oh no, it's an amazing
so
car.
When people recognize it, I'm happy.
Yeah, I was shocked when I went out there. Like first, like you see,
You hear it.
So I think we were in here, so I didn't hear it. But if I did, I would have just went out sooner. And
I'll start it up for you.
I went out and I was excited. 'Cause, like you see the wing on the back, and then I don't even know if I had one now. Like I'm just like in shock of it still. But then you see like the hood, and I'm like, no way is that the G8. So I used to work at Alaska Sales and Service. Okay. I can't even tell you how many years ago. So this is probably like when they were kind of out. So this is probably like 2008-ish.
Yeah, that's
maybe?
2008.
So, and then we were there and someone traded one in. So like you get like test drive them and it was summertime. So it was like rear wheel drive and all that. But it was the only thing on our lot that would hang with like the Corvettes. And like you could even compare to it. Like, and ever since then, like everyone wants to come in and like you have to put down big deposits to test drive Corvettes and whatnot, right? Yeah. And for good reason. But like for that, you didn't have to. And like it's just, everyone sleeps on it because like they don't know what it is. But like if the people who worked there, like they knew what it was, and it was so amazing. So yes, just to see you drive up
I want
in
to
it,
race it,
and like being like the white, like the pearl white almost, like it's just so amazing. I'm super jealous of that car.
I'll let you drive her.
One of these days, you should take it out the track. They have like just days when like anyone can go out there. You should take it out on the little Honda day out there and just smash all of them.
I want to, so I need to get the right details. So one of my kids was trying to help me figure it out, but she kept giving me street races where they were like going down C Street, and I was like, I don't really want to do a C. Like I want to, like the odometer gets up to 185.
Yeah,
and I was like, well,
we need to see if
in my dad's honor. I want to peg that odometer.
Yeah.
And so I just but where's the enough space to do that where I'm not hitting potholes or dips because she's really low to the ground.
Ooh, you know where's good? Minnesota.
Well, so that's going to get me in trouble. So I've definitely gotten over 100.
Anywhere in town's going to get you in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
But, right?
So hence the 95 on the frontage. But I want to see how high I can get that odometer. So I'm like, where in Alaska, like other than maybe going like up towards Fairbanks or something, and the roads are still bad, but like I'm sure there's stretches where nobody's around.
Yeah.
I mean, wildlife, but I really want to figure it out. So if you help me, we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
You can be in the passenger seat. We'll do it.
You guys are like all out and about, like over like Alaska and like doing like hunting stuff and whatnot. Like obviously, I'm sure you guys have been like to Homer or towards Homer.
Yeah.
There's like some really good long straightaways going to Homer. Like once you get off the Y and like so like past Hope. And then you get like going like the open woods where like there's like all the forest fires are like it's all regrowing.
Yes,
but there's
those
some
were
really
torn up last summer.
Oh, were they?
Because we were thinking about.
I don't think we went down at all last summer.
We went down for fish camp, so we were doing dip netting, and my daughter and her husband were going to meet us, and we're like, oh, just use one of our cars because we have some cars for the teenagers too, like an old Corolla, right?
Yeah.
And then the Corolla ended up having a broken axle, and they're like, can we take the Pontiac? And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah,
the entire roads are torn up. Like they wouldn't make it without thrashing the car.
Yeah.
And so I was so sad, but I was like, of course they would have loved it and like the stretches. But I thought about it because I was like, oh, they're going to want to drive the Pontiac. And then we were like just dead stop.
Yeah.
And like all kinds of construction. I was like, no, hard pass. So they borrowed our friend's car.
Yeah. So, man, when was it? I don't even remember what I was buying at the time or trading something in. But I went to like the Continental Group on Old Seward and I was looking for something. And like I've always had this problem of buying like cars you could like really like just put a lot of money into or like sink a lot of money into.
Yeah.
Everything from like my first car was like a nice Camaro that we built up, and then I've had other fun stuff like some diesel trucks that like had a bunch of money into it but poorly done, so like all they did was cause problems.
Yeah.
But they were fast and fun.
Oh yeah.
And then I had like a WRX for a while, which is okay. And I think when I bought the WRX, I was test driving other stuff, and they had an Audi S4, but it had the V8 in it. And then I test drove maybe a BMW 2 and maybe a Mercedes, but we had that Audi, the S4. And the guy drove it first, and then we went somewhere, parked and switched, and we got on Minnesota, and this was him driving first. So what would happen was he test drove it first, and then he got on Minnesota and did a big loop.
Yeah.
And then he got way up there, and I say we were probably at least going 140. and then we made a loop. We got back to Continental, we switched, and then I did it, and the same thing. So like somewhere along there, like I don't remember now because it was so long ago, but there's a stretch there where you can get way up there.
I bet.
And that was one of the nicest things I've ever drove. I didn't buy it, but probably ended up buying something that I just sunk a lot of money into and ruined. So man, there's places in town, but obviously like anywhere in town to get in trouble. Another good one is Post Road.
Okay.
And they have like a bunch of like Hondas racing down there and stuff that shouldn't be racing. But we used to have a shop on Post Road, and they would be out there like every night racing or doing something. But again, stuff that shouldn't be racing. We had some like nice dump trucks, and like these things got like 500 horsepower or more, and like they can get up, and they were like beating some of their Hondas. So like it's people that out there shouldn't be racing, but it's like a half a mile long stretch on Post Road or so. So I mean, you can get pretty quick on it.
Oh yeah.
So just fun places to go.
So I need to figure out how to get her off the starting line without spinning out that back end because it's really light.
Yeah.
But I was like, once you get her going, like she just pulls forward. Yeah. And so I'm like, I know I'd do fine. I just want to like see how she'd rate and compare.
Yeah.
And so, but as like a first timer, I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to get her off the line because I, like if it's wet out, and I accelerate too fast, it's like the back end. I was like, oh, it's just wet roads.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's just a lot of car.
Oh, I bet. So if you go to the track, obviously, like it'll be sticky at the starting line, so like that'll help. Another thing you could do is buy like used tires, but like they're half balled already.
Okay.
So like they're like street legal slicks basically.
Okay.
So I saw that in like a magazine one time that someone was doing it, and they had like a really nice muscle car, and like it was a sleeper. So like you couldn't tell anything was done to it, but it had like 600 or 700 horsepower. And that was his trick. He'd go buy bald tires because they would just be slicks.
Okay.
And then once you heat them up, they get really sticky, and then like nobody knows.
Nice.
So just something to look into.
I'll bug you later.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, so what are you doing this weekend? Or I guess today, the weekend's almost over, right?
Yeah, after this, I do private lessons with Josh, and so I'm going to do that from 3 to 5 and work on striking, and then mostly just start the work week because I just got back from vacation. And so,
Hawaii, right?
Yeah, so I did a little girls' trip for my birthday to Hawaii, and then hopped over to see my sister in California, and then headed back home. And so just to get out for good weather, and then California was like full of storms, so it rained the whole time. And then in Lake Tahoe they had like 8 feet of snow, and I was like, I left to go to Alaska weather apparently. But it was a lot of fun, and so now I'm just getting back into the swing of real life. I'm back.
Nice. And then you trust James at home with all those kids by himself?
Oh yeah, and there's
all like such a wide range of kids, right? Like
so
like the house probably runs itself by now.
We run on tight ship, or nothing gets happening, right? So the youngest is almost 7. And the oldest in the house is almost 19, but he's about to go away to college. Yeah. And so...
but you guys got enough of them. There's another one right behind him to cycle through, right?
Oh, yeah. So we have... Vivian is in 8th grade, and then we have 2 9th graders and a junior, and then Gideon's going to AvTech. So, so it's become... I don't want to say manageable because I don't want to jinx it.
No,
they all have their varying different needs.
Yeah.
But... having the youngest be almost 7 is like just such a great phase of life. Having them all in school, which is why I was able to go back to work. Yeah. And so it's been a refreshing season.
So before you start going back to work, which the masseuse deal, right?
Yes, massage therapy.
Yep. Is that different than just a plain masseuse?
Well, you can edit this post-production, but masseuse implies like sexual favors.
Does it?
Massage therapist, so it sounds professional. And so be wary of places that advertise. Yeah. Like, interestingly.
Yeah.
But...
any strip mall Asian masseuse parlor.
Well, you remember where AGA used to be located, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So... it was such a crazy place for a brief amount of time. But, so I went back to school when Lucas went into kindergarten, and then became a licensed massage therapist, and then I'm working at a chiropractic office during the daytime, and then I have a room in AGA that I do for a cash clientele.
Is that like the place where like the kid stuff is right now?
Yeah, so there's kid stuff, and then in this back, so I don't know if I showed it to you when you were in, but the very back end of the hallway dead ends into the therapy room. So we have the women's locker room room and the men's locker room on one side. We have the little kids room on the other side, and then dead end at the end of the hallway.
Okay. I assumed it was in the little kids room.
Oh, God, no.
So my next question, like, do you guys clean it
with,
out?
Big windows? No.
Yeah.
No, I have it all set up back there.
Definitely can't be a masseuse in there.
No, you cannot.
Right?
You're going to go to jail. So it's really nice having 2 areas, and then anybody that wants to build insurance, I have them go through the chiropractic clinic.
Yeah.
And then cash customers, I have them come through the gym bay, and it's been really nice. And I like being able to work on like the people at the gym because I know what's bothering them, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, let me see your arm for a second, or let me do this, or let me do that, and which got me all of my, like, helping me practice through school and learning where the muscles are and everything. I was like, I have all of these guinea pigs.
Everyone who needs it is like right there in the gym. Is that like the people that are going into the gym? Is that like most of the people who you're working on inside the gym? Yeah. Or do a lot of them go to the actual chiropractic office for you?
So I don't, like, anybody that comes through the chiropractic clinic is usually all new clientele, because they're all patients of the doctor. Yeah. And so I see them based on what the doctor says that they need. Mm-hmm. And so any of my friends that are like, hey, I want to build insurance, then I just have them schedule through the clinic. Yeah. And that way, because I don't want to do that. I'd have to, like, hire people to do that for me, because I'm totally not interested. I've done it in the past for a job. I don't want to do it again. Yeah. So then anybody that's like, that I know through the gym, or I know outside of the gym, that's like, oh, I just want to do this, because I charge $1 a minute, which is really cheap when you're looking at massage therapy services. And so then I just have them come through the gym. Nice.
So when you're at the chiropractic office, you're saying like that doctor there, the main person there, like they have like clients that come in like you've never met before, they just kind of assign to who's there. Yeah. Okay, nice. So it's not like a referral based thing, or
no. So
at least 100% not referral based.
Yeah. So it's basically anybody, and that's how you kind of get regulars. So since I was new in August, I started there because after school, it's Murphy's Law. I've never broken anything, and then I got out of school and then broke my finger running my dog. Yeah. And then had a bunch of tendon damage and had to get PT, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I just graduated massage therapy school and I broke myself. Yeah. I'm used to that.
I know, right? It's okay. Well, obviously, they don't know how podcast works.
They're so cute. That's okay. So that's like my house too, right? Yeah. All the kids, noise, all the time.
And right now, it's just 3 little girls in there in high heels stomping around, and
I had a rule that I was like, don't buy my kids those like little Barbie high heel shoes, right?
Yeah.
Because we have wooden floors, and so that's all you'd hear is the clomp, 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 clomp. And I was like, those would get hidden.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like there's those which you try not to like let them wear them in the house type of deal, but then like the boys will have like cleats or something, like those go around the house, and then all you hear is those running around, and then you hear the like 100-pound dog running behind him, and I'm just like, oh man.
We have an old English bulldog, and he's about I'd say he's probably like 85 pounds. Yeah. But it's the same thing. Like I was saying, like I have the little fat French bulldog, I have the big old English bulldog, and a bunch of kids. And I'm like, so how can I expect the dogs not to run around and bark when basically my kids are running around and barking? When your kids are barking,
right? Yeah, that's what he thinks. And the dog's just getting in on it, having the ball, right? Oh, yeah. Is it the English bulldog or is it the old English bulldog?
Old English. So the big one, right? Big, yeah. And so I absolutely love him, which I was out running him, and then an off-leash dog came up behind us, and it startled both of us. Yeah. But Church turned to snap at him. But then as he turned around, it knocked me down. And so I hit the deck, got dragged behind an 80-pound dog. I like weigh 120, okay? It was like easy to do. And like I was bleeding from head to my knees on like one side, and totally like broke my knuckle, and then ended up having all this tendon damage and having to get PT. And I was like, this is great. I take my dog out for a run, and now I can't like work. So,
nice. How long did that last? Like how long were you out of working?
I ended up not going back to work, so I basically since it was summer, and like I was like, okay, so I broke it in June, and then we had like fish camp and hunting and all of these things, and I was having to get PT done anyway, so I was just like, whatever, and so I just put it off until the kids went back to school in August, which was nice because then I just have it all wrapped up, like buddy taped basically at all times, and did all the things I wanted to do for summer break, and then went and did like PT at OPA, so. It worked out nicely that I graduated in April. Yeah. And heard it thereafter and then took a break. But it's still not 100% normal, and I still buddy tape it for Jiu Jitsu because it just doesn't.
It's always just going to be like worse and worse and weaker type of thing. Yeah. Let's see. What was I going to ask? Something about the kids. They go to public school?
We have tried everything.
Yeah.
And so when... so I have 10 kids. I've parented 21 kids.
Yeah.
Right now, 7 still live in my home. And we have tried public school. We've tried private school. We've tried homeschool.
Yeah.
We have tried everything. And I maintain that it's never one size fits all.
Yeah.
And my kids, because we've adopted 6 kids through foster care, they are all wildly different and have wildly different needs and strengths and weaknesses, that it's like trying to have them all at one school is really hard.
Yeah.
And then thinking about who would fit in the best everywhere. I've spent so much of my life thinking about how to like teach my children appropriately. So no, right now they are in a homeschool hybrid program because I don't want to homeschool. I'd rather stab my eyes out.
Yeah, you and me both.
So bad. The pandemic was tough.
Oh yeah, my wife was staying at home during that, and
God love
but
her.
I was working full time, so she was staying at home and dealing with all that, and I was just like, oh man, and it was like Zoom classes, but all different times, and oh man,
million
the worst.
different emails from a million different teachers. I was like, I think I tabbed it up where I was like, between having high schoolers and middle schoolers, and they each have multiple different teachers from multiple subjects.
Yeah.
I was like getting like 37 different people emailing me,
Yeah.
and none of them lined up. And I was like, I'm not checking emails.
Yeah.
I don't care if you fail. The whole world is going to fail this grade,
Yeah.
and I don't care. I'm not doing it. Like, just do what you
Yeah.
know that's in front of you that you can see on your assignment sheets and plug along.
Yeah, just do it.
Because that's all
Yeah.
that's all we can do right now, because I just like fried out.
Yeah, you got to assume like everyone's having those same exact problems, right?
Yeah.
Maybe with not so many kids in the house, but like we had 4 at the time doing it, so I can't even imagine like going beyond that. But
Right.
like, and then in hindsight now, it's just like I think everyone just got to pass on it anyway. They're
Mm-hmm.
like nobody knew what they were doing. Everyone's just like, well, everyone's like every 4th grader is going to go to 5th grade being a little bit dumber.
Yeah.
And every 9th
that's
grader is
okay.
going to go
We'll
to
play
10th
catch
grade.
up.
Everyone's playing catch up, right?
Uh-huh. So we have them in a hybrid program where they are actually at a building during the day.
Yeah.
And they have teachers, but technically they're homeschooled.
Yeah.
So it's through a homeschool charter, but they are not in my house doing homeschool.
Yeah. What's the name of it?
I think that they're calling the homeschool charter, like they're through Family Partnership, which is part of the ASD.
Yeah.
But the homeschool group that they're a part of is called the Green Room.
Okay.
And I think it's high school only at this point, or middle school and high school, because Vivian's in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And so, but they're doing well. I don't think any of them love it because it's very small.
Yeah.
But it's only Monday through Thursday.
That's nice.
They go from 9 to 2. They have Friday off. And so I'm like, it's pretty minimal. And like,
Yeah.
the only time they have homework is if they didn't finish it during class, because they have ample time to finish it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I always joke, I call it like, you're on my time now. I was like, I don't want them doing homework when they're on my time. I want to
Exactly,
spend
yeah.
time with my kids when they're home.
Yeah.
And so it has been a really good balance for that.
Yeah. And like, man, when they're an adult or like older and they see like school is like the best time of your life, then like they're going to be like, oh man, we only went to school 4 days a week for 5 hours a day. Like,
Right.
man, like everyone else was going, 5 days a week for much longer.
Much longer with busy work.
Yeah. And then so like, man, like, yeah, like from a parent's point of view, like that would be amazing. Like that's what every kid should want to do. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, kids are like, obviously they don't know that. And like when
No,
we were in
they don't
school,
have the
like it was just
perspective
like,
for it
this
yet.
sucks, blah, blah. I just want to, I want to be free. I want to be an adult. And now like I look back, I'm like, I just
Bills,
wish I was like a
work.
junior in high school still.
I know.
Or like a senior maybe.
You try to give them the perspective to appreciate it while they can.
Yeah.
But they don't have that perspective.
Exactly,
They're
yeah.
like, I don't want to do chores. I'm bored. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah, well, I don't want
So
to do
cute.
chores either.
I don't
and
wanna
I'm older
work.
than you, so
Right. I know.
go away. Yeah. And then your dog's name's Church?
Yeah, so we have the Old English Bulldog is Church, and he's our second, and we had one before that lived to 13, and he's
The
just-
English Bulldog?
Yeah, Old English.
Wow.
And he was
That's impressive for a big
I
dog,
know.
right?
And he was amazing. He was by far the best dog in the entire world. Like I miss him.
Yeah.
And then we have a fat little French bulldog that's 10,
Yeah.
and she looks like a little hippo, a little white hippo, and she is so obnoxious. But I absolutely love her.
Yeah.
And so that's Tulip, and then Church, and then we have the 7 kids, and there's never a dull moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you've had 10 kids, but parented 21.
Yeah.
right?
So we did foster care and adoption for like 2011 to 2018.
Oh, wow.
And
And does that start as foster kids and then you move on to adopt them, or can
Yeah.
it just go straight to adoption?
It depends. So so I do volunteer for the Heart Gallery of Alaska. And then Beacon Hill, they're tight-knit. It's the same people kind of heading up both of those things. There is a Heart Gallery in every state. The Heart Gallery lets you know what kids in foster care are, quote, legally free. So the parental rights have been terminated over that child, and they are looking for a forever family, right, to be adopted.
Yes.
So you can, like, because you would technically foster them until you adopted them.
Yeah.
But the intention would be you're inviting that kid into your home to be the forever family for the kid, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you can do that. But what my husband and I did is, like, we just foster who needed to be fostered. And we did, like, let caseworkers know, like, our heart is to adopt, but the primary goal is always reunification. Like, if you can keep that family unit together, then that's the best for the kids, right? And so Beacon Hill does foster care support services to equip the families to keep their children. Like, so they're reunification oriented. And then the Heart Gallery is, okay, so reunification was not possible, and we have kids that still need to find homes. And so then that's kind of the Heart Gallery's main pursuit. Our kiddos were placed with us as foster kids, which is why we've had 21. So some reunified successfully, and that's awesome, and, like, super excited about that, right? And then some were not able to do that, which we adopted. And we became their forever family. So they're all my kids. And I would never introduce them as somebody like, we've adopted this one, not. Right? So it is beautiful to be able to see the reunification side. And beautiful to be a part of the adoption side.
It's got to be, like, pretty bittersweet though, right? For the reunification side. Like, like, obviously, like, that's the goal. But at the same time, like, depending how long, like, obviously they could stay, like, a shorter amount of time, which would still be hard, but, like, I'd imagine you could put a lot longer into it. Like I don't know, what's the longest you've, like, fostered someone into that process?
So, with two that we adopted, they were with us for 3 years and 8 months before we adopted them. But in that first 3 years, the goal had been reunification. And so knowing, like, that they could spend 3 years in my home and then leave was devastating. It's
gotta be scary.
And so it was, and, like I had so much anxiety at the time because you can see the process. Like, they call it concurrent planning when a child has a case plan to reunify, yet has a plan that if reunification isn't possible, this family is going to adopt them. So they have the concurrent plan is they have a reunification plan and an adoption plan going at the same time. So if this derails, this goes in. Right? I'm gesturing on a podcast. I'm sorry.
Well, it goes on YouTube too, so we can see it. We could all gesture the whole time.
Miming. So you can't not bond with a child.
No.
And right. So I'm like, the thing is, though, is if I just, like, a lot of people say, I wouldn't want to be able to love them and let them go. I couldn't do that. It would hurt too much. And I was like, let's twist that narrative, right? And be like, I want to endure loving them and letting them go and having a broken heart rather than thinking this child never knew somebody loved them. Right? And so, but it is, because you like, any day that a child was in my home, I was mom. They didn't have to call me mom. They didn't have to think of me as mom. But I was going to mom them, love them the same way I love
you're going to show them that, which, I mean, I was like, and in hindsight, the person saying, like, you wouldn't want to love them and let them go, but, like, wouldn't you want them to feel that rather than being in, like, a home for, like, multiple kids or something like that and not having that? You just have a babysitter there telling you when to wake up or whatnot, or whatever they do in those homes, like,
for sure.
Man.
But I know, like, the being on the side where I'm like, it hurts really bad to see them go. So, like, when somebody's like, I don't think I could do it, and I was like, well, you don't have to. Like, there's so many other ways you can support. You can, like, I don't think everybody's called to foster and adopt. I think that people are called to do so many different things to help their community, right? That it could be anything, like helping the homeless, helping, like, I don't know, vets, right? Like, there's so many things.
Or,
so
like,
many
the big brother, big
help,
sister
right?
type thing. Like, maybe you want to help that way.
And so, like, I totally get it. Like, and I'm thankful for my process. But I can tell you that it was anxiety ridden and devastating.
It gives me anxiety just thinking about it. Like,
I could think about your kids leaving and never seeing them again.
For me, like, to and as obviously as an adult, to think about, like, man, like, I'm gonna, like, take you in and then let you go, or possibly not let you go, but possibly let you go. I can't even imagine, like, that in a kid's brain, like, just like the whirlwind and tornado in their brain that does. Like, I can't imagine how that affects a child. Right.
And then being in multiple homes, like whether it's multiple family placements or multiple foster placements. Yes. I mean, there's just so many stories that are devastating.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful to be kind of on the end of that journey where it was all questionable, right? Like what's going to happen next. And so I remember the last day, or the day that our last adoption was finalized, like I just sobbed that night.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, all of my kids are mine.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to leave again.
Yeah.
And I'm done. We're going to shut down our license.
Are you guys done now?
And so, so we shut it down after we adopted Lucas, he's about to turn 7.
Yeah.
And
the one with, it doesn't have hair anymore, right? But the one with the hair, right?
He has amazing hair.
Beautiful hair.
I miss it. I let him cut it off on his 6th birthday.
Yeah.
And I still regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was done having us play with his hair, though. I can tell you that. So
yeah.
it's okay. But so once Lucas's adoption was finalized, and it had been almost 8 years of that, and I don't want to call it a roller coaster, but it is.
Yeah, I could imagine. That's what
of adoption.
Yeah.
And foster care, and having so many kids in and out, and the way that you adjust, because everything changes when you put a new little person in your house, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't go back to your old normal when that person moves out. You find a new normal.
Yeah.
Because you never go back to the way it was 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And then once you feel like you get comfortable again, somebody else comes in.
Yeah.
And you never know how long they're going to be with you.
Yeah.
And so that was the hard part, is like it was this constant adjustment.
Yeah.
Which, like, I have kids that are like, I can't wait to foster and adopt when I grow up. And I have kids that are like, I'm never doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it affects each person in the household differently.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, like, I remember when we closed down our license, my oldest son, Gideon, was super sad.
Yeah.
And he was like, just heartbroken. He's like, why are we not going to have any more kids in the home? And I was like, well, I'm glad that you are going to miss this, because I kept moving kids into your bedroom. So I'm happy that you're not like, oh, thank God we're done. But yeah, I was, all of them are very different.
Yeah.
And so, having the foster care license closed down, and then being able to help, because I do the volunteer things for Beacon Hill and the Heart Gallery whenever I can. That has been a nice season, because there's no shifting.
Yeah.
Like, everything's kind of
just like a nice in between.
Yeah. Nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's like coming in and out.
Yeah.
All those things are good.
Yeah. So what's the longest that you guys have fostered a child before they got reunited?
If I remember correctly, I think they were all within probably 6 months to a year.
Okay.
We did some for a season. We just did transitional placements where kids were waiting on an airplane, like to get out to McGrath or something, because the airplanes don't run every day.
Yeah.
So I can't remember what the acronym was, but it was just they need a place to stay until they can get to wherever they're going.
Yeah.
And so for a while we just did that for a bit, because it was easier to have somebody in for a weekend than adjust to somebody in the household. But I think the hardest one was having a newborn.
Yeah.
And then parenting that newborn for 6 months, and then it reuniting, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
And I was very thankful that was possible. But when you are the sole provider for somebody so little, like after she left, I would still wake up at 4:15 to feed her, and she's not there. But my body clock had adjusted to being with her. Yeah. And so I would just wake up and cry a little bit, and then go back to bed.
Yeah. Is 6 months kind of like an average?
In this, like, I wouldn't say no. Honestly, the average for kids being in foster care, I think is like 10 to 22 months, and I could be behind on my statistics.
Yeah.
But they try to resolve a child's like placement permanency, I think within like 12 to 18 months. Like they don't want kids being bounced around, right? Yeah. And so I think the goal is to try to do that as fast as possible, and I am not current on my statistics. Yeah. But I think that the way that we had things set up, I would talk to the caseworkers a lot. Like I had a list of questions like about this placement, bump, and I had questions. Yeah. Like one of them is it an ICWA placement? Because I'm not an Alaska Native parent. James and I don't have Indian blood. Yeah. So technically we are not a first placement preference for Alaska Native children. Okay. And so we're not also an adoptive preference. Mm-hmm. That being said, we adopted 4 Alaska Native children. Yeah. Right. And so, but that doesn't make us an ICWA home either. Yeah. So I'd ask, like, is this child an ICWA placement? Has the tribe signed off on them being placed with us, so they don't immediately, like, because the tribe could say, we don't want them there, that you need to move them to an ICWA home. Yeah. If there's one available. I
wonder if they say no, like, are they doing something like themselves to help the process then, or like, are they looking for somebody, or like, because it's kind of hard to say, no, we don't want you to go to this home, who they want you.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do anything to help, right?
Yeah. So I think it depends on the tribe, and it depends on how active they are in the case, how quickly was the removal, all of those things.
Yeah.
Like, so it's always like, I don't know how it happened. Like, was there a police involved? Was just a caseworker involved? Where did it start?
Yeah.
And then when does the tribe get notified? And then, because you're trying to find, like, if you pick up a kid from a house, they're not going to sleep in an office, right?
Yeah.
And so it's who do we have available on the list? And so there's a lot of factors at play. And sometimes when you say yes to a placement, my list of questions might not get answered for days. And I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to wing it until we figure out what's going on, right? And so it really is just, I mean, it's a system, like a process that's already overwhelmed. And like, and I always maintain that the people that I work with, I was like, they're all overworked and underpaid, and they're doing so much that I hope that when they get to go home at night, they get some reprieve, right?
Yeah.
And so I always try to be very considerate that the person that I'm talking to might be like, I just got handed a file, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea. I have a kid sitting in my office. I got a file. I have no idea what's going on. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But to ensure that these, like, we weren't going to be another place that just bounced them.
Yeah.
Because I never want to say yes to something I couldn't commit to.
Yeah.
So I'd always try to do is get as much information as I could, because I just don't want to be like one more household, one more thing, one more placement. So any kiddo that came into my house, I was like, we're in it until they reunify or if they need an adoptive home.
Yeah.
And so I try to make sure that they were planted as long and securely as possible with us. And so.
How'd you guys get into that? Were you adopted or part of foster care, or James, or like this is just something that you guys ran into?
I always wanted to adopt as a little kid. It was like, I want to adopt. And James was like, I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And so originally we just planned on, because we have 2 biological children. And so we planned on.
Out of the whole 21?
Yeah, just two are biological kiddos, and they're back to back. They're like 16 months apart. And so we had 2 kids, got a vasectomy.
Yeah.
And our plan is to adopt 2.
Yeah.
But when that was it. We have so many kids that the plans go awry. So we looked into it because everything's kind of coordinated together. Like, you have the Alaska Center for the Resource Families, Catholic Social Services. All of these things work together to find permanency for kids. And a lot of the classes that you take when you're looking into adoption are through ACRF. And which is the Alaska Center for Resource Families. Okay. And a resource family is like an adoptive foster kinship, like family taking in other kids. And then Catholic Social Services does private adoptions and matches people that would like to create an adoption plan for their child with an adoptive family, right? Yeah. And OCS is doing foster care. So all of these things kind of work together, even if they're not the same thing. Yeah. And then we have like Beacon Hill, the Heart Gallery, all these things, right? And so we were doing classes through ACRF, and I was one of those people that was like, I can't do foster care because I don't want to give back the kiddos. I'd fall in love with them and I couldn't do it. And then learning about it totally changed my mindset. And I think it's like once I had the information, right? Yeah. And I was like, okay, well then I'm okay with doing foster care, hoping that someday it would lead to adoption, that we would be able to adopt some kiddos that needed a home. And then our very first placement was Orlando and Vivian that we did get to adopt. Yeah. But that was a 3-year, it was like over 3.5 years. Yeah. To get to finalization. And in that meantime, is when we were like, well, we could foster a couple more, right? Yeah. With the intention of just being an available home. Yeah. And then I was like, well, we're gonna adopt this one, and then this one was available, and it was like, so this thing, and then my biological niece went into foster care and moved in, and we adopted her, and so I'm like, it turned into something that wasn't the plan, but I wouldn't ever go back and undo it. Yeah. Right?
With the niece, is that something like? Obviously, like, I don't know how it worked out, but as she was going into foster care, is that something like anyone reaches out to you and like says like, hey, I was like, this is your biological niece. Is there a preference or anything like that?
Yes. So say the child was young enough not to identify. She was old enough to know that she had relatives that could be a potential placement. But
how old was she?
She was 15 at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So she was older. So her, and then she had older siblings too. So they did reach out, and they reached out before like OCS did. Oh yeah. And so I had a heads up, but she was in a different city. So I ended up talking to like people involved in what was going on and saying, hey, I'm going to come get her. Like, she's old enough that I'm just going to come pick her up. You figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll be there tomorrow. And then I talked to people face to face, and then we did get the right paperwork in order. But that was a different kind of situation because she was 15 and could speak for herself.
Yeah.
But so if there's a child that's, say, 5, they get on, I don't know, background checks, do all the things, and call all available relatives saying, hey, so-and-so is needing a foster placement because this happened. Or they take, and they can get that information usually from the biological parent.
Yeah.
Or the biological parent can say, we are really close with this family neighbor. Like, my children already spend so much time with them. Can they please be placed here?
Yeah.
So there is some amount of family comes first.
Yeah.
Because the assumption is that the child knows that family, has a relationship with that family, and that transition will be the least traumatic as possible.
Yeah.
So a family friend or a relative that the child is already comfortable with.
Yeah.
If that's not available, then you go to foster parents, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, so there's a hierarchy where it's family friend. Obviously, you're having some tribal considerations, and then foster parents, right?
Yeah.
And so James and I were actually licensed as a group home because we had so many kids in our house, but we weren't a group home in the manner of, like, we just take whatever kid needs to be taken because we're a group home.
Yeah.
Like, our foster license was labeled as that because we then could have 6 foster children in our home at one time.
Yeah.
And so we had our 2 biological kids. We had the 2 that moved in first. We had a sibling group of 3 for a while that reunified, but they were with us for almost a whole school year.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a priority preference.
Yeah.
That just doesn't always work out.
Yeah. How much does the kid have in that? Like, does the child get like a say so at all, or like does it depend on age or anything like that?
I don't think they really get a say until they're 10 or 11.
Okay.
And that's the age that they can speak for themselves in court. So there's I think it's 10 or 11, maybe it's 12. Maybe it's 12 now. Let's go with
10
12.
seems pretty young.
10 seems pretty young.
12 seems reasonable.
Let's go with 12. But I think, like, say the child was just getting adopted by any foster parent and they did not ever bond with them or click with them, I think the kid could say, I do not want to be adopted by this family in court, which means that they could just get randomly assigned a different foster family, but they're old enough to advocate for themselves.
And the court has like a set age where a child can speak?
I think it's 12.
Yeah.
We
12
should
makes sense.
Google things. I don't know.
Hey, Google that. Like, what's
We need fact checking.
What's the age of a child has a say so in court? But
This is nice.
Right? Yeah. But because 10 seems pretty corruptible still, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, you like us. Remember we gave you that Hershey's
Oh, it's
bars.
14.
Oh,
okay.
wow, okay.
Oh, see, I was off. I was giving them.
14's, I mean, that's probably
Maybe
more
that's
reasonable, but 12 does seem appropriate.
So I want to say, and I could be wrong.
Yeah.
My facts are outdated. I haven't been doing this for a while. I want to say that it's 12 when you're talking about an adoptive placement. Maybe it's 14 when it comes down to divorced parents.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's
Maybe.
an age where a child is allowed to speak up for themselves in court. And maybe that's not universal. I don't know.
It might not
We're just
be.
going to guess.
Honestly, it's probably not universal because I'm sure states like they vary.
have different.
Because like states have different varies and ages on, I think, just like consent, right?
Yeah, it was like age of consent, kids getting married, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it should be
Crazy.
it should be on voting too, honestly. Hey, well, while you're on Google what the average length of a foster stay is.
Yeah. Which is going to be different between state and
so many
national
places,
average, right?
Yeah.
But
man.
yeah.
Yeah, 10 seems way too low.
1 to 2 years.
Okay, so that's when I was like, so if I'm like looking for like 10 to 22 months was kind of like,
no, that's right there.
And maybe that would be like kind of Alaska's timeline.
Yeah,
of like
2
what
years is
we're
a long
trying
time.
to do. It is, and so all
especially
of our,
like if you're having like in that 2 years, like if they might be reunited with the parents, like, man, so you had one for 3.5 years, but you got to adopt them, right?
We did, but
during
that was
time,
still concurrent planning until almost the end.
Yeah.
And it was so stressful.
Yeah. Does it get more stressful? It's got to get more stressful towards the end, right?
Yeah.
Just because like we're almost there. Like if we just get past this last month.
And we've had reunifications where I'm like, I'm watching this person thrive. The bio parent would come over and hang out in my home.
Yeah.
We have a relationship with her. We love her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm excited for the kids to go back to her.
Do you stay in touch with those?
I do
kids?
stay in touch with one family that had 3 kiddos. So I do still have updates on them and keep in touch with them. But most of them, no.
Yeah.
but I understand why. Like,
Yeah.
I would love it if, like, you absorb them into your community and everybody's all friends and all the kids still get to hang out. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
It's just not always real life.
Yeah.
But we did have one situation where that was the case, and I'm very thankful for that.
I bet. Like, as, like, the foster parent.
Yeah.
Like,
And to know that they're all still doing well.
like, that's what
right?
you want to know, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't
And
want to know,
that's
like,
what I wanna know.
you're, like, back in the system somewhere else and, like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. I wonder if it's got to be more the parent side, right? Like,
Yeah,
you
and
would
it's
think,
totally,
like, the child would.
We make our shelves available if you, at any time. And
Yeah.
we're easy. You could Google our names if you want. But it's really what they're comfortable with, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to know that they're doing well and things are, like, successful.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, sometimes you can see that. Like, with the one, our cuties that went over 3.5 years, I didn't feel confident that it was going to be great. And it made me nervous and sad.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful. But, like, there's times when you're like, I'm excited about this reunification.
Yeah. Are those
And then
ones
there
that you
are
stay in
other
touch with?
No, the ones that went over
Oh.
3.5 years, we adopted
Oh,
them.
shit.
But the other
Yeah,
ones,
obviously you stay in touch with
yeah,
them.
I still still
alright.
see them from time to time.
Good to
like,
know.
This morning.
Good to know.
But the other ones, we used to see them, like, multiple times a week.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, like, I should text and check in and see how they're doing
Yeah.
and see how mom's doing and all the things. But I know they're doing well.
Yeah.
So
It's got to be hard not to be able to stay in touch with them.
Yeah.
All right. I'd imagine, in my head, it's got to be hard to, like, for the kid not to stay in touch, too.
Yeah,
I'd
at this
assume, like, if
point-
it was a long period of
Yeah.
time, like, there's bonding on their side, too.
For sure. But then, like, being able to have that relationship with them afterwards, too, even if it's a little, like, farther between now.
Yeah.
I know they're doing well. I know they clicked back in with mom. There isn't that
Yeah.
lost or longing anymore. There's been enough time passed and enough of, like, especially the successful reunification time
Yeah.
that they're all doing well.
Yeah.
So there isn't that longing, right?
Yeah. Age
And so
probably
that's
plays a
good.
big part in that, too, as
Yes.
far as, like, whether, like, the kid wants to stay in touch or even knows to. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
a
if
4
they're
or 5-year-old
little.
is just going to be like, this is just life. Yep.
Yeah, and if
Where
they're
was I
really
yesterday?
little, like the baby, right? Like,
Yeah.
she'll never know.
Never know. Yeah.
Right? Unless there's, like, because I left a photo album. Like, I was like, because I don't want to have, like, this missing gap.
Yeah.
And so I made sure to give her a photo album full of pictures of the baby and stuff that didn't also have, like, a lot of our family in it.
Yeah.
There were some pictures of that.
Yeah.
But she could remove that and put just have her individual
Yeah.
photos, right? So she didn't miss out on that timeline of her daughter growing up so much. They changed so much as babies.
Yeah.
And so, but I put her contact info in it. I just said, it was a privilege to be
Yeah.
able to spend this time with your peanut.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for trusting me with her.
Yeah.
Like, just being very thankful, and giving her photos and all the things. But then the ball is kind of in her court if she wants to keep in touch later.
Yeah.
But that door is always open. Like,
Yeah.
she could, like, this was years ago. I was like, she could call me tomorrow and I'd be like, yes, I'd love to meet up with you. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
But the baby's never going to remember. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and that's what I want. I want successful reunification where she doesn't remember a time of not being in her home.
Yeah.
And so, so hopefully there is with the younger children that it was just, this was a bump and we kept on going.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not on their radar as big kids or adults.
Yeah. I think that's amazing that you guys do that.
No, well,
Or did that, and obviously still play a hand in it, like the smaller role, like volunteering. I couldn't ever imagine doing that. My parents fostered one child when, I don't even know how, we were obviously really young, so I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
But I think at the time, like, he was about in high school. And I think they stayed in touch for a little bit. And obviously, like, the child had, like, the access to stay in touch being in, like, the high school age.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he graduated there or not. But I think they, like, reached back out to him, or the kid reached back out to them, vice versa, one of the two, a few years ago.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was too. His Facebook profile didn't look too awesome, but he was alive and healthy.
I was going to say,
assuming
my Facebook profile might not look that awesome
Yeah.
either. So hopefully he's doing better than
Yeah,
that.
hopefully he's doing good. He didn't look too healthy in the picture, but at the same time, like, I was like a baby basically, and I
Yeah.
have no recollection of him.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm not really sure, like, what drove my parents to do that. I don't think I ever, like, talked or asked a family
Sometimes
friend
the need
maybe,
just comes
or
up,
just something happened.
right?
Yeah. But yeah, again, that's amazing you guys do that. It's gonna take me forever to wrap my head around all that. How'd you get into jiu-jitsu?
So, as you can imagine, James and I are big plate people. Like, if we do something, Like if we may hem and haw over a decision, and go back and forth and be really like struggling and straining on a decision. But once we commit to something, we're like 100% in. Yeah. And then anything we don't commit to is just deleted and we move on, right?
Me too. Yeah.
So when you're a big plate person, I piled on my plate really, really, really full.
Yeah.
And I did it well. But then I got to a point where all of our adoptions were finalized. We had like a good home. We had our cars paid off. Like, I feel like I got all the things that like gave me anxiety.
Yeah.
Like taken care of.
Yeah.
Like I didn't worry about my kids leaving the house. Like we weren't tight on money. We had a big house because we had overgrown our house when we were doing foster care, and we had Maddie and a playpen in the garage we converted into a playroom, and we had Autumn couch hopping. And so it's like we outgrew our house doing foster care, had to find a new house. It was really hard to find a house big enough for us all.
Yeah.
And so I felt like once all the adoptions were finalized, like there wasn't stuff to stress about.
Yeah.
And my plate is so full, and all of my kids have wildly varying different needs.
Yeah.
I kind of fell apart and I got really depressed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why, because I got everything I wanted.
Yeah.
And so, but it was the first time that I wasn't putting out a million little fires.
Yeah.
And had to address all the stuff for me for years that I didn't deal with.
You couldn't handle having an empty plate?
Yeah. Well, my plate's still very full, right? Because
Yeah.
I still have all of these kids. And they were all little. So I had like when the last adoption was finalized, they were all 2 to, God, how old was Autumn? Maybe 18? I don't know. And so I had a ton of kids, ton of things, like all these things on my plate. But I had to like look at the stuff that was like that I had never dealt with. And I had like a very non-traditional upbringing. My parents were both addicts. It was kind of stressful. Like it wasn't the best. And like, so you learn coping skills that are unhealthy. So like I feel like I got very depressed and very lethargic, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to do anything. I gained a lot of weight. I just wanted to sleep all the time. I just wanted as little output as possible.
Yeah.
And then I ended up doing the women's self-defense class that they were doing. Like they still do it, but I think they call it women's combat class now.
That Legacy, right?
Yeah, that Stephanie now leads. But when they first...
Forgot you started at Legacy.
Yeah, so I did.
Man,
so it
crazy,
was October of 2018.
Yeah.
And they had just started it was when they first started the free Saturdays for women.
Yeah.
And I went and did one of those classes because James and Gideon had started, because Gideon was doing homeschool. So James and Gideon had started probably in August.
Yeah.
And we're going there, and it was right down our road because they were at the end of Boniface at the time.
Yeah.
So it was very close. They did that. So Gideon had his homeschool gym credit. James and Gideon did it together. And they're like, you would love this. And I was like, I don't want sweaty dudes touching me and my neck always hurts and it sounds gross and I don't want to do it. And I was like totally rad about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why you think I would like that. But I used to like watch UFC with my dad, like when Hoist Gracie was heel hooking everybody at the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I like the idea of watching it. I like the sport. I don't practically want it to happen to me.
Yeah.
But then I went and did the free class, and I got to know like Jordan and Frankie that were helping out at the time. And they made it fun, and it didn't feel intimidating or awkward or like weird. And then it was like the minute I felt comfortable with them, it clicked. And then I was like addicted. Yeah. And so I was going to the 6 a.m. class. I was going to the noon class. If I could sneak in an evening class, I would try to, but with all the kids, it was hard.
Yeah.
And it was like complete obsession kicked in. And I woke up. Like I didn't feel lethargic anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't want to stay in bed. All I wanted to do was like think about jiu-jitsu, because when I walked through those doors, I got to push pause on how bad I felt. And like in that cycle of depression, I just felt like nothing I did was right. Like I felt like a constant disappointment. I felt useless. I felt like I used to be super mom who could do all the things and do it with no sleep. And then everything was overwhelming. Like washing my hair was overwhelming. But then I woke up and I was like, I could go into these doors, and when I'm in these doors, nothing else is on my mind other than focusing on the moves that I have to do, and the movement. Yeah. So my mind is engaged, my body is engaged, and it's interesting, and you have to stay engaged or you could hurt yourself or your partner, right? Yeah. And so it was like I got like a bit of a factory reset. Like all I had in front of me was what I was focused on. And I can't remember feeling that way because I feel like I always have tabs open.
Yeah.
Like it was like there's 17 tabs open. I don't know where the music is coming from. There's always so much stuff going on in my head because there's so much stuff I have to do. Like after this, we have to get Costco. After this, we have to get so-and-so signed up for this class. There's always all those things going on, right?
Yeah.
But when I walked through the doors to Jiu Jitsu, it was only Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah.
And that was addicting.
Yeah.
Because then I was awake and I was like free, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so like it took me over.
Yeah. It'd be like that though, right?
Right.
Like,
And so, but it was so nice. And so that's why I tell people, I was like, if you have anxiety or if you have depression or if you have something like, find something, whether for like, it might not be jujitsu for somebody else. It might be rock climbing. It might be whatever.
Honestly, like probably just anything, find like some sort of physical activity or just
your
activity.
Brain and your body is doing something, right? And I was like, that's the best thing you can do. But I tell people all the time, I was like, we offer a free week. Just come in and try every single class and see if anything clicks, right?
Yeah.
Because you might be a gi person. You might be an no-gi person. You might like striking. I am totally anti-gi. I can't handle it. I don't like my jacket trying to kill me.
Yeah.
But like that's what ended up getting me into it. Is I tried the women's self-defense classes for free and then got hooked and haven't looked back.
Yeah.
So, and that's been 4 years. Like October was my 4-year anniversary of doing jiu-jitsu. So
and then one of the kids did it with James, like starting out. Any of the other kids like get into it?
They did. So they did for a while. They would do the kids classes at Legacy, and that was also when we're kind of in our homeschooling period, right? So they could all do it as a gym class.
Nice.
And then again, we transferred, like, so they did private school for a while, and then it didn't line up with the classes all the time. And so a handful of them will still go and do some striking sometimes at AGA.
Yeah.
But for the most part, none of the kids do jiu-jitsu. But I'll be honest, part of it is complete selfishness on my part because that's my me time, and I don't really want to bring them.
Yeah.
And so I think that I could be like, do you guys want to do this? And some of them would say no because some of my kids are touch-me-nots.
Yeah.
And some of them would say yes, I still want to do it. Like Lucas is oddly good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like teaching that kid how to do a lockdown, I'm like, he's 6 and he does a better lockdown than I do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, impressive but humbling.
Yeah.
But I try to take him every now and then. But he's also squirrely and gets through about 30 minutes and then starts bugging his neighbor.
Yeah,
so
as like most kids do, like especially like the younger ones. Like
it's like they're like you learn so easy, they absorb it.
I think ABJJ they do like a 45-minute kids class, and other places might do this too. But I think that's the only one I know about because like once you hit that 30-minute mark, it's just kind of like
they get a little squirrely.
Who wants to play dodgeball now, or who wants to play sharks and minnows?
Yeah.
But yeah, like 45 is probably like a great one because an hour, like you're just begging.
And we
for
do that
kids.
At the end. We're like, we're gonna play that at the end, buddy.
We're playing, but you got to. I need you to do this first. Yeah.
We're just gonna finish this real quick, and so he's locking down a lockdown and rolling this kid, and I'm like, it's impressive. I can't even do it that good.
Yeah. James been doing it for 4 years too, or just a little bit longer?
Yeah. So he's just a couple months longer than me because he's kind of started in August, and then I picked it up in October of that 2018. But so he's teaching our lunch classes. At AGA. They're like 11:30 to 12:30, and him and Leland take turns because she works on the slope, and so he'll teach for a couple weeks, she'll teach for a couple weeks, he'll teach for a couple weeks. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
And then have you been taking a break, like a hiatus, or?
So my jiu-jitsu is a little bit lacking because I went back to school. And then I hurt my finger, and so honestly, when I was in school, because of my work schedule or my class schedule and then the amount of homework we did, I started doing more striking and boxing with Josh and the MMA team. And so, which was also kind of nice because it was like, be brave at being bad at something. I was like, it was so horrible. Like I didn't know what I was doing. And so it gave me that focus of being new and bad at something and like desiring to get better. Not that my jiu-jitsu is that great. I get stuck in bottom side
it's great though.
All the time. But I picked up that a little bit heavier because I could go straight from school into the striking class. And then I would hit a jiu-jitsu class or go home. Because I just had so much homework. And so, and then getting hurt on the mat or from the dog off-leash dog incident. We have leash laws for a reason. I could be safe. My hand could be safe in the boxing gloves, but it wasn't. Like I was taping it up, and I'm like trying not to hurt it all the time. Knowing also that now I need them for my job, right? And so,
you just had your first boxing match, right?
I did.
Like a month ago? Or
it was in December.
Yeah.
So I did that in December, and then we did the women's tournament in January.
Was it in January? The one at AGA?
Yeah, so the women's charity tournament, our second one that you were at, that was, I think, like January 28th. It was the end of January. Oh. And so, so my season, like, so then I ended up not doing the no-gi tournament this year because I was still wondering if my finger was going to be up to snuff.
Yeah.
And I was doing, like, my massage. So I was like, dang it, I'm a massage therapist. If I get hurt, I'm really in trouble here. So I didn't do the no-gi tournament, which I love doing. I did the boxing match, and then I hosted the female sub-only.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing jiu-jitsu. It's just I feel like it's not as obsessively as my beginning, right, of the journey.
Yeah. So. Is it like striking's taking over now?
Yes and no. Right now, I just like... I don't know. I just like learning. So there's always, and that's the great part is there's the opportunity with both. Like I feel like you're setting a good foundation, right? And then you're kind of learning what you're interested in now.
Yeah.
And so, not that I have the best foundation with the striking in MMA.
Yeah.
But it's fun, and I kind of know where I want to go and what I want to do and what might be fun.
Yeah. Are you doing MMA classes too, or just the striking?
So I'll do the striking, and then I do the private lessons, and then the MMA at night. And so,
is that the goal to do MMA?
I would like to.
Yeah.
Because I do like. So that's the thing is like, a cage match would be fun, right? To do like to take an AFC fight.
Yeah.
But like at Nick's fight in January, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Totally broke his hand.
Yeah.
And now he's like been off the mat, and I was like, I can't break my hand.
Right,
Not that I would.
Let alone just for like, the sporting aspect of it, but for work, right? Like,
yeah. So I'm like, so if I break my hand, I can't work.
Yeah.
And so that puts a whole different level of pressure when it was like, well, this would suck, but I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't really want to break my hand or something.
Yeah.
So right now I feel comfortable with boxing matches because there's less likeliness of me actually breaking something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's probably less likelihood of me breaking something in a boxing match than there is even at a jiu-jitsu competition, right? Because like you could get broken doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of it, but it would have to be when I know, like, if something did go wrong, I could take a 6-week break to heal or something, right?
Yeah. And probably in the start of the massage therapist course, like, it's probably not the time, right?
No. And that's the thing is I wanted to take a match when I was in school, and James was like, please don't. And I was like, fine.
Yeah.
But then, like, I'm 42, so if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now.
Yeah.
And that's like, this is late to be starting. Like, I would say I'm a healthy 42.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, it's like everybody else is like, when I did it, I was in my 20s. And I was like, no, I was having babies in my 20s.
Yeah.
And so now I'm playing catch up and all these fun things.
Yeah.
And so part of me wants to just slam it out and, like, push really hard for a year.
Why not, right? You're healthy. You can do it.
Yeah.
You are doing it. I was 19, I think. So, like, I was right out of high school. Yeah. And the thought of doing it now
when
for
you
me.
Heal quickly.
Yeah, you healed quickly. And, like, now, like, I don't heal at all. I just walk around broken all the time. And the thought of somebody punching me, like, square in the nose is just like, fuck, no, I'm out of it.
You're like, I'm good.
I'll just do jiu-jitsu. And, like, I get hurt enough there and all that, like. But, like, you know what I would love to do is, like, some of the MMA classes, but not so much to, like, strike or anything like that, because, like, I don't want to be punched, but, like, some, like, wall wrestling would be fun. Something like that. But I think that's as far as, like, I'd want to go. Right. When I was in Florida for a bit, me and a guy there, John Kaler, I think he listens to this, so shout out to John Kaler. He does combat jiu-jitsu and stuff, so I was helping him get ready for some of those matches. Nice. And those were really fun. Because obviously, like, when you train for it, you're not, like, full-on palm striking. Like, you're just doing, like, finger slaps. Like,
yeah, you're like, no, 10, 20%. Right.
Yeah, and we got up a little higher than that, but, like, they were still, like, finger slaps. So it was fun. And it, like, just really, like, changes your perspective on jiu-jitsu. Like, oh, well, I can't just sit here and go for leg entanglements, and I can't just sit here and have, like, a shitty bottom guard and be lazy. Like, I actually have to get up. Like, I have to try to play top game. So that was fun. And, like, he's doing great things, like, traveling around doing combat jiu-jitsu. But,
that's awesome.
like, so that was fun. I would never want to do a full match, but training with people who do it was fun.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I can imagine doing MMA now. But at 42, good for you.
Well,
like,
thank you.
That's awesome. James, same age. How long have you guys known each other?
So I met James when I was 15.
Yeah.
We started dating at 17 and got married at 19.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're about to hit our 23rd wedding anniversary, and we've been together 25 years.
Awesome. Good for you guys. Yeah. You mentioned watching fights with your dad.
Yeah.
As a young, do you still watch fights?
I do. I'm not like, so that's just it. It's like I know there was some yesterday.
Yeah.
And I don't have the subscriptions, I guess, to watch them all. So I feel like unless I'm getting together with people, I'm really outdated. I'm not current. But I did start watching all of the original, like UFC one, like when they all started, and it was like, nice. So I wasn't, since I'm old, I was in high school. So, and my dad was into it. And he did Thursday night at the fights and stuff when he was younger. He was actually not that young. It was like when he was 38, 39, 40. So, really? Yeah, he was a young 40s as well.
Yeah. You guys just all aged nice.
Yes, we do, luckily.
Yeah.
And so it was just something we did. And I used to watch boxing with him all the time. Like, I loved watching Oscar De La Hoya growing up. Yeah. Like, I thought he was so cute. And so it was always my favorite. But
until you found out he dressed in women's clothing.
I know. Right. Mind blowing. I was like, okay, things got weird. I don't need to know about their personal lives. Yeah. But I enjoyed watching all the fights. Like I grew up watching those with my dad, like when I was little, and so that's one of the things. Like, he passed, and I'm like, I'm kind of sad not to share that part with him, because that would have been healthy for our relationship. Is to share these type of things together.
Definitely.
But yeah, he has since passed away, which is why I have the loud car in the driveway.
Why you have the amazing G8.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, I liked watching them all. Like, it was fun and it was crazy. It was a completely different world where you have like Hoist Gracie and then this guy that bounces at a bar come in, right? And I was like, he's wearing like combat boots. Like, what is going on? It was like crazy. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Did you know in the beginning they were talking about, like, when it was just an idea, they were talking about having like a moat with like sharks or alligators around the cage, the outside of it. Like, that's how crazy and like just wild it was back then.
That would have been kind of awesome. I love the ref, like Big John. Yeah. Like, I miss him. Like, I don't know what he's doing now. But
he's an announcer for Bellator, I think. Oh. Or commentator for them, I guess it would be called.
I had no idea. But like, I could watch Big John and some crazy people and then a moat. Like, I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
like,
it'd be real theatrical.
Bring it back.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it'd probably never be to where it is today. Mm-hmm. But it would have been fun to watch. Like, you imagine like everyone's like some little casino, like the Mandalay Bay, and there's just like they're bringing alligators into a moat. Like,
alligators snapping, throwing some chickens every now and then to feed
someone smartened up was like, that's just not a good idea.
Right?
This is horrible.
It's a bad plan, you guys.
Yeah. And all right, so we're a little over an hour. Do you want to tell people where they can find you? Social media, what you're doing, how they can get a hold of you for massage therapy.
Good job. Yeah. Well, I'm Christina Marchetti, and my Instagram is Rest for the Wicked AK. I think there's a dot. Rest for the Wicked dot AK. I don't know. So you can follow me on there, which is also where you can ask me about appointments. And then I'm at AGA, and they have, and I do the social media for the gym. Yep. And so they can contact me through there if they have questions about classes, or like, we offer a free week. Just come in and try stuff. And and that's Anchorage at Anchorage Grappling. And then I think that's about it. Yeah.
Great. Well, I had a great time.
Thank you so much. I did too.
You can find the podcast on YouTube and Spotify, and the Mediocre Grappler podcast. You can find that on Instagram too for upcoming stuff or who we're interviewing. And then Facebook's just Mark A. Robinson II. But I think you can type in the podcast name for that too and it'll pop up. All right. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much.